And welcome back to Touchline Talk. New CBAs and equal pay coming to U.S. soccer, not the only big news of the day. We also had the Europa League final to play this afternoon or evening where they actually played the game. Rangers, Eintracht Frankfurt. And this is one of those Europa League finals that, as a neutral, you absolutely love because not only is winning a European trophy a huge deal for both of these clubs, they're also both playing for a spot in the Champions League. It carries a completely different weight than, these when you've got Inter Milan and Manchester United and Chelsea and Arsenal winning the Europa League. Now, every once in a while, that's playing for a spot in the Champions League. And of course, those teams are taking this incredibly seriously and absolutely want to win and add that trophy to their cabinet. But it's something different entirely when it's teams that you don't know when they're going to get back there. Right? All of the teams I just listed are expecting to be in the Champions League. Who knows when Rangers makes another deep run in Europe like this? Eintracht Frankfurt just kind of came out of nowhere. This was their route to the Champions League. And they end up being successful. The game itself was exactly what you would expect in a final. The first half was very tense, tight, not a lot happening. Frankfurt were the better team, but created a chance here or there. Generally speaking, there wasn't much going on. Again, Frankfurt better in the second half, but it is ultimately Rangers who go in front. And really the story of the normal time in this game was the defensive lapses. Most of the key chances in this game came because of defensive issues. And Joe Aribo's goal for Rangers was right up there near the top of that list. It was just a series of unfortunate events for Frankfurt. You get a bad pass going backwards, then the defender slips, and all of a sudden Aribo just finds himself one-on-one with Kevin Trapp and just sort of bursting into the box with nobody around him. Very good, calm, collected finish, and all of a sudden Rangers look like they're on their way. But you have it's not really fair to call it a defensive mistake. More of a miscommunication. But Frankfurt really started applying the pressure, and Rafael Borré, who's been phenomenal in big moments for Frankfurt in this competition, makes a really dangerous run and kind of cuts in between the center backs. Nobody cuts out the cross. Nobody gets between him and the ball. And so all of a sudden, he's able to poke it in. It's 1-1. We go to extra time. Kevin Trapp comes up huge at the end of extra time. Rangers had a couple chances, one in particular. Probably should have won the game. But Kevin Trapp keeps the ball out of the net. And so we go to penalties. And it's Kevin Trapp again. Makes the save on Aaron Ramsey, who came on more or less to take a penalty. And he can't convert his. Frankfurt were phenomenal with their penalties. I mean, that might be the best collection of 5 I've ever seen. So rock solid. Every single one of them. And so, congratulations to Eintracht Frankfurt. They won the Europa League and absolutely deserving winners. I mean, you go back and look at the teams they had to play to get there. Barca, West Ham, Rangers had impressive victories of their own. You went and beat that team. This was no easy route for Eintracht Frankfurt to get this trophy. And that fan base is absolutely incredible. You had 2 really, really good fan bases show up in Seville for this game. And, of course, set the stage all tournament long. It's not too often you get something as special as this Europa League ended up being. From some of the team, your Borussia Dortmunds and your Barcelona's that got involved, West Ham coming so close to European glory, having a Scottish team make such a deep run, particularly a Scottish team being Celtic or Rangers because of their fan bases and because of their historical significance. Eintracht Frankfurt taking over Barcelona Stadium. I mean, this fan base is no joke. And they showed up again for this game. There were just a lot of really cool storylines. Because it kind of felt like we had sort of gotten into this mundane, well, it was, you Sevilla, Unai Emery, or a really big club. And Eintracht Frankfurt are none of those things. And neither are Rangers. I mean, Rangers are a huge club, but not in the same way a Chelsea or a Man U or somebody like that is. And so we got what you always hope the Europa League is. It's a chance to highlight some different teams, to give them that European experience, to get a different kind of team in the Champions League, and to just get something quite simply different so that you're not having the same teams over and over and over again. And we absolutely got that this year. Congratulations to Eintracht Frankfurt. While that is going on, we also had Monday, Tuesday, crucial Premier League games as we wind down to the end of the season on Sunday. Arsenal watch Tottenham win over the weekend and then play Newcastle and fail to show up, which puts them in a really, really tough spot. We're going to outline exactly what this all looks like in our weekend look ahead and set the stage for that final day of the Premier League season. And it's not... Arsenal didn't lose close. Arsenal didn't draw. Arsenal got handled. And that Newcastle team has been excellent since Eddie Howe took over. I will not understand why there was so much reservation about him taking that job. Or more specifically, that job being given to him after what he did at Bournemouth. Much like Sean Dyche, he just kind of ran out of energy and resources. It's hard to continue to overhaul those squads. And at some point, you just stop being able to punch above your weight. Something goes wrong, you have some injuries, you have a bad defensive season, and you're facing relegation. That is just the reality of being Bournemouth and being Burnley. What Eddie Howe needed was a team with the ambition to match the way he wants to play. And that's exactly what he's got at Newcastle. So I did want to give Newcastle some props because we haven't really been able to talk about them too much. And they are easily one of the most interesting factors coming into next season. But they're just playing to continue to build momentum and finish the season well. Arsenal are playing for a top four spot and certainly didn't look like it in this game. And it just comes back to something that's not too complicated for me. This team hasn't been here before. This manager hasn't been here before. And you're basically asking them to take the step from not being a factor in the Champions League race at all, the battle for the top four, to getting a top four spot at the expense of their biggest rival, who, oh, by the way, has a bunch of players who played in the Champions League final and have done this exact thing plenty of times before, and are managed by one of the most proven managers in the world. That is an awful lot to ask of a young team and a team. Right? Just go down the list of players featuring for this team. Yes, they have guys who have technically been there before, but in terms of responsibility, in this kind of team that finds itself in this kind of position, it's not just the young guys. It's also your Thomas Parties and Rob Holdings and Cedrics. And of course, Thomas Party's not playing right now, but you get my Granit Xhaka. Right, these guys aren't battle tested when it comes to competing for Champions League. They've been around, they're experienced players, but it's something different when you have a team breathing down your neck and you're fighting for a Champions League spot. And you contrast that with Harry Kane, Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, Hugo Lloris. Right? They've all been there plenty of times. And so, yes, Arsenal are still alive, but that very much kind of felt like this is it. So we'll see. Well, I'll explain exactly what needs to happen for Arsenal to get that spot. But I will continue to preach, and anybody who knows me knows how strongly I believe in this, that learning to win is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And so, Arsenal have absolutely taken a step forward this season. They have progressed in learning to win. 100%. I'm not here to take back any of the praise I've given Mikel Arteta and this team. That next step is, okay, now that you've got some good habits in there, can you take it to that next level? And from his behavior after the Tottenham game, their behavior during the Tottenham game, and their response against Newcastle, they're just not there yet. They've got plenty of time. Again, this core is young, and the manager's young. You realize how much that everything they've given this year, it's probably not going to be quite enough. And so you know that going into next year, and you get up and you try again. Speaking of trying again, we have our EFL Championship playoff final set. It is Huddersfield Town. It is Nottingham Forest. The two teams expected to be there, but boy, did we get some twists and turns I was not expecting. Because I came on here on Monday and preached about this idea that going into the second leg, these two teams were favored even more than the favorites typically are, because they were able to win and draw away from home, avoid defeat, and bring it back to their home fields. And we ended up with two absolute nail-biters over 180 minutes. Or in the case of Nottingham Forest, 210 plus a shootout. Luton Town went to John Smith Stadium and gave it everything they had. Ultimately, it is Jordan Rhodes who makes the difference. Samber Thomas comes on, Huddersfield's main playmaker, who's been injured, not fit enough to start either of these games, but he comes on as a sub and ultimately delivers what turns out to be the winning goal. And there's a real argument that the difference of Thomas being able to play and Elijah Adebayo, who's Luton Town's leading scorer, he came into the second leg at the end, but you could tell he just wasn't anywhere near close enough to healthy enough to be able to make a difference in the game. That might have been the difference. That's how tight these two legs were between these two teams. Terrific season for Luton Town. As I said, they continue to just every single year get better and better and better. And then we go to the drama between Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United. Forest looked like they had this thing more or less done and dusted. It was very similar to the first leg in that they came out, took control. Brendan Johnson scores, following in his dad's footsteps and scoring in both legs against Sheffield United. And they look like they're on their way. And it's going to be a nice little coronation celebration at home. And for the second game in a row, Sheffield United come out of halftime, a different team, and really take it to them. And not only do they get their 2 goals back, Brice Samba had to be a hero to even get this thing to extra time with some of the chances. And Nottingham Forest had a couple as well. But when we were getting to the end of that second half, it certainly looked like Sheffield United were the more likely team to go on and win it. And it's some of your main guys involved, primarily Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson for Nottingham Forest. But nobody can get that decisive goal. So we end up in a shootout. It's Samba again who comes to the rescue. And Sheffield United almost took what was a disastrous start and got it back to where we were going to sudden death penalties. Just couldn't do quite enough. So it is Nottingham Forest who go through. And this sets up an interesting matchup in the sense that Huddersfield have not been one of the better teams in the championship since getting relegated. They just sort of put it all together this year. But of course, they do have some Premier League experience. They also have a lot of roster turnover because they're not a club that's able to keep some of these guys. And when you get relegated, they're not West Brom or Norwich who can kind of keep everything together. So there's been plenty of turnover, and it's been a couple years now, so there's just naturally some turnover. But you've got the DNA of a Premier League club, but a club that size-wise is certainly nothing compared to Nottingham Forest. I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but just from a historical significance standpoint, that's what makes this matchup so fascinating. Is Huddersfield Town are the recent Premier League team that are, you could still argue, punching above their weight, trying to get back and give themselves another opportunity to stay up. And Nottingham Forest are the massive club who usually don't make the playoff, but are kind of always in and around it. And now are in a position and have a team capable of getting there. And if they get there, it is really, I always am fascinated when teams like that get to come up, because you might have the justification to put the funds in to try and stay in a way that Huddersfield or in Norwich just won't. And you also have a Brennan Johnson who certainly seems like will be playing Premier League football next year one way or another. He's spectacular. But we haven't seen what Nottingham Forest in the Premier League looks like at this point. To me, it's sort of similar to Leeds. Leeds were not trying to get there and find a way to stay up. Leeds were trying to get there and build. Same thing with Newcastle. Newcastle and Wolves, right? They were building, and Nottingham Forest aren't exactly those two teams because they were building Premier League teams in the Championship. Nottingham Forest are not that. But this idea of, can we get up? And when we get up, we are not playing to stay up. We are playing to cement ourselves as a mid-table Premier League side at the very least. So you've got some interesting storylines. We'll have to do some more previewing this. We got plenty of time before the game. This is always one of the most exciting games of the season in any league because it is the most expensive game in the sport. So congratulations, Huddersfield, Nottingham Forest. We will see you at Wembley.